Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for your support. If you love book hauls, reviews, wrap-ups, TBRs, then you should subscribe to this channel. So today I wanted to film my very first single book review video. I want to talk about The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is a book I read in February. I mentioned it very briefly in my wrap-up video. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars, which I did not expect at all, because it got such a crazy reaction out of me that I wanted to acknowledge that in my rating. This book terrified me to my core. I think this must be the scariest book I've ever read so far. When I finished this book, and also while reading it, I was completely taken aback of how scared I was, and I kept thinking about it and trying to figure out why would I react to a book like that? That's not even a horror novel. And I think I have 2 reasons why it completely terrified me, and that's kind of why I wanted to film this review, because yes, I love this book a lot, and I'd kind of be interested to see if anybody else had the same reaction. I bet that the majority of people that will read or have read this book don't find it scary at all, but I want to tell you why I did. And I just want to get you interested in this book, because even if you're not going to have goosebumps from it, I think it's still a lot of fun and very engaging. This book starts out in England in current day time with our main character, Rowan. Rowan is in her mid to late 20s, she's single, and works at a daycare. And one day, while browsing through the internet, she stumbles upon this job offer from a family in Scotland that looks for a live-in nanny. She ends up responding to the ad and takes a train to go for an interview where she meets the mom and the kids and ends up getting the job. This family consists of a mom and a dad who are pretty well off. They were able to afford to buy this house that is quite well known in the village. It's called Heatherbury House, and what they did is they completely renovated it and they turned it into a smart house, which means that pretty much every single device in the house that's electronic, that includes like the lights and the doors, is hooked up to a central tech system, and you're able to control it with your account on a tablet. And there's also 3 cute little girls, which I forgot their exact ages. I think the oldest is 8, then 5, and then the youngest is a little baby that can't walk or talk yet. That's the main plot, and it sounds kind of basic, right? But here's the twist. Much later, after Rowan gets and starts the job, she ends up in prison for murder. One of the girls that she's supposed to take care of ends up dead. And the book is basically a series of letters that Rowan writes to a lawyer she tries to get the attention of, explaining what exactly happened in that job and trying to explain why she's innocent, or she thinks she's innocent. So through her letters, we learn what exactly happened and what the smart house has to do with it. Because although Heatherbury House has been completely renovated and is now a modern tech house, it has a very dark past and a very interesting reputation. And that's what drew me into this book. I really like that new nanny and haunted house trope. So I like this book because I like the pacing of it. It's quite a quick read, and it leaves you wanting to turn the page and keep on reading to figure out what happens next. And while there's a few characters that you don't get to know that well, which it's probably also part of the mystery, you do end up really getting to know Rowan and her relationship with the children, because in the beginning the children are having a hard time adjusting to Rowan. She's a new face, a new live-in nanny, and they're basically trying to make her life really hard. But you do end up rooting for her, because you can tell by the writing how she's really just trying to do her best. She's trying to take care of the children and keep them from harm, and she's also trying to connect with them. I think the best part of this book is the atmosphere that Ruth Ware creates. You really get sucked into the environment of this book, so you really get to experience this big house with the pretty vast estate, the feeling of loneliness because it's so far away from the village or any bigger city. You get a good feel of attention in the house, which is a mixture of Rowan trying to find her way around the new house with all that very complicated technology, and trying to deal with children that don't really like her and won't listen to her. And later on, when the house starts acting up and almost develops a mind of its own, that's when kind of the uncertainty and fear starts creeping up on you and Rowan, because you don't know if it's truly just a tech issue or if there's maybe some kind of bigger force driving the house against Rowan and the children. That's the part that kept me guessing until the end. I personally liked the ending and I did not see it coming, but I think the meatiest, juiciest part is anyways the journey and not just the ending. Don't go into this book expecting a horror novel, because it's not. It's really more about the mystery and the thriller, and the atmosphere is really great. But if that sounds good to you and you like the trope of live-in nanny and haunted house, then I think you will enjoy this book. Now to the fun part. I want to talk about the 2 reasons that I think are why I was so completely terrified and at times had to put on a random YouTube vlog on the side to watch while I was reading with the lights on, because otherwise I would have completely lost my mind. I want to preface this video by telling you about my pain threshold when it comes to horror. It's very low, but I have read books before that are supposedly quite scary, that are more in the traditional horror genre. For example, The House of Leaves by Danielewski is pretty well known to really get under your skin, as well as Night Film by Marisha Pessl. And no, those books, first of all, I don't think I liked them that much. I think I gave those 2 and 3 star ratings, and also no scare whatsoever. So number 1 is I think I was able to relate to Rowan a lot because I've been a babysitter for a lot of years during my teenage life. I have looked after multiple children, sometimes siblings, so more than just one. I have stayed overnight. I have looked after a child for consecutive days. So I think that really played a part in why I was able to really empathize with Rowan, and I kind of understood what she was going through. Taking care of a stranger's child is a huge responsibility, and now looking back, I do not know why these parents left me alone to take care of their child when I was like 15. I mean, I would say I was pretty good at it. No child was ever harmed, but I don't know if I would give my child, if I had one, to a complete stranger. And I really got those moments when one of the children was behaving really badly on purpose just to piss Rowan off, because it can get really frustrating and you want to say something, you want to discipline them, but at the same time, it's not your job because you're not the one raising them, right? So you can't yell at them, you can't scold them, you just have to kind of deal with it in the moment without raising your voice. And that can be very challenging. And at the same time, if you look after these children for a long time, even a few consecutive years, then they really do grow on you. And reason number 2 is, I think, the main reason it really got to me. So, if you haven't guessed yet, this book is a retelling of The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. It's a classic story about a young woman in her first job also taking care of 2 kids in a big manor as a live-in nanny. And guess which famous TV show is also a retelling of The Turn of the Screw? It's a cozy little Netflix show called The Haunting of Bly Manor. I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, but I promise it is relevant to the big picture. So as I mentioned before, I do not watch horror movies at all. If I think a horror movie sounds interesting, I go on Wikipedia and read the plot. But as an avid Netflix consumer, I heard so many raving, amazing reviews about The Haunting, the first season back then, The Haunting of Hill House, that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch this with my boyfriend. I'm gonna force myself through it because I just hear so many good things about it and I wanna be part of the conversation. And let me tell you, it was worth it. So it goes without saying, when the second season came out, which is The Haunting of Bly Manor, that I just really wanted to watch it as well, so we did. And it ended up being not as scary as the first season, actually. It's more a gothic romance story. So yeah, even if you're a scaredy cat like me, go watch that Netflix show because both seasons are just fantastic. Anyways, wrapping back to our book. So essentially there were so many parallels between The Haunting of Bly Manor, the Netflix show, and The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, our book, because they're both a retelling of the same story. And while the book might not be very scary, the TV show is. I know I just said it's not that scary. I'm talking about comparing it to season 1, but the show still has a good few moments of jump scares and also a lot of build up in the atmosphere. What ended up happening is while I was reading the book, I was at the same time imagining what I saw in the show. And that's what made it completely terrifying for me. For example, there's this moment in the book where Rowan is standing in the kitchen. She's looking out of the kitchen window. It's pitch black outside. The window is floor to ceiling. And she keeps staring out of it because I think she heard some kind of noise. So what I was picturing in my head was not just our main character staring out of a freaking kitchen window. No, I kept seeing Haunting of Bly Manor, episode 7, the very last scene. That was what I kept expecting to read next. Or another good example is there's a moment in the book where it's becoming clear that something horrifying and weird is happening while Rowan is sleeping in her room. So what I kept seeing in my head was, well, the same thing from end of episode 7, walking through her room. So yeah, I'm trying to explain this without giving spoilers for the show or for the book, but it's these images from the show that are stored into my brain that I kept replaying in my head while I was reading, and this is what really pumped up my fear level from like could have been a 2 to a 90. I kid you not, I would take breaks from the book. I would go, for example, into the kitchen and do the dishes, and then my fridge would make a weird noise and I would just jump. Was it really from the book or was it from the TV show that was in my head? We'll never know. So in all honesty, if I take away the fear factor, then it would probably be more of a 3 or 4 star read, because there are some things that could have been developed a little further, like for example some of the characters and some parts of the storylines that we kind of dab into, but then we leave them very quickly. But I do want to give the author credit for how she made me feel through this book. I think she did a very good job with just the layering of confusion and fear and tension. And I'm definitely going to pick up another book by Ruth Ware soon, hopefully. In conclusion, if you're into mysteries, I think you should pick up this book. If you watch The Haunting of Bly Manor or The Haunting of Hill House, you should pick up this book. If you haven't watched those shows yet, you should watch them. And yeah, I think that's it. Let me know if you read this book and how you felt about it. And let me know if you had the same reaction if you read this book and also watched Bly Manor, if you saw the parallels like I did. Thanks for listening to my book review that kind of turned into a Netflix show review. I just might put together a video that's like, if you watch this TV show, you should read this book, because I think I already have a few ideas. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.